What's the worst thing you've ever been accused of while being completely innocent? Story 1. This is actually happening right now. I am being accused of having my best friend cheat on her girlfriend with me, even though we're just close online friends. Her girlfriend, the one accusing me, won't stop thinking about me, despite the fact that my best friend and I have tried everything we can to get her to drop the whole ordeal. But today, she once again brought it up to my best friend. Story 2. Bank robbery. I was early for my first day as a gas jockey in a new city. I was across the street from the gas station, digging through my backpack when suddenly someone told me to show them my hands. I was totally confused until I looked up and saw 2 RCMP officers. Hands on their sidearms, though they didn't draw them or anything. It turns out there had been a bank robbery around the corner a few minutes earlier, and my gas jockey uniform and backpack matched the description. They looked inside my bag, which contained my brown bag lunch and a paperback, and then they were gone in a flash. Apparently the guy didn't get caught until after another bank robbery in the same area. Story 3. My first week of high school, I got called into the office because rumors were flying around that I was planning to blow up the school and had already rigged it with explosives. This was obviously news to me. Then, about a year later, I had my wisdom teeth removed and missed a week of school. When I finally came back, my friends had to explain the freaked-out looks I kept getting from classmates. Apparently, a boy who regularly picked on me had vanished from school around the same time I did. And the rumor going around was that I had killed him, eaten him, and then been arrested. Everybody was surprised to see me because they had spent the past week telling each other that I was in jail and he was in my stomach. Folks sure make up weird rumors. The boy was fine, FYI, he'd just been suspended. Edit. Just woke up, and since this got some traction, I guess I owe everybody some explanations. In fairness to the other kids, I was that weirdo from an abusive home who cracked strange jokes to cope with life. And resting bitch face? Well, I had a resting enraged face, which I assume was a side effect of being a parental punching bag. And in extra fairness to the other kids, I could usually trace the rumors back to something stupid I'd said. The explosives misunderstanding had to do with old middle school jokes about the gas nozzles in the science labs, mixed with an overheard conversation on the bus that morning, where I was arranging to sell extra firecrackers to a guy who only lived a few dirt lanes from where I lived. And of course, I never bought any of that to school. To explain the really crazy rumor, I have to tell a bonus story. Not long after that first week of high school, my home life went entirely bonkers, and I had to move to another state. I was there for almost a year before circumstances changed again, and I had to come back. But I felt it was okay, as I'd already been to that high school previously, knew where everything was, and even had friends. So on my first day back, I got my lunch tray, found a table of my friends, and went over to sit with them. But like I said, weird home life, weird sense of humor. So, when everyone at the table looked up, surprised I was back, I said, "What? I swear I didn't kill anybody last night." They all freaked. Eventually, my best friend calmed everyone down enough to stop screaming, and she explained to my entirely baffled and confused face that, the night before, an elderly couple had been murdered in their home. Small town, very little crime. My family didn't watch the morning news, so I had no idea. I swear, I was just cracking one of my usual jokes. It just hit with crazy timing. I promise I'm better now. Turns out, a lot of years away from an abusive childhood and learning about trust can heal a lot of damage. Story 4. I was accused of breaking a girl's arm on a bounce house at a local fair when I was around 8 years old. I had only been on there for a few seconds, just doing my thing, when I heard screaming. We all stopped, and the girl had an obviously broken arm. She pointed at me and said, "He did it," with her non-broken arm, of course. The guy in charge kicked me off, no refund. I found my family and explained it to them, and my uncle said he had been recording me on his camcorder when it happened. This was 1982, and the camcorder was the size of a briefcase and ran on VHS tapes, but we had no way to play it back while at the fair. We went home, plugged the thing into the VCR, and played it back. Absolute 100% proof that it wasn't me. But then I got a life lesson in how being right doesn't mean you win. My dad pointed out that we'd have to walk 15 minutes back to the bounce house and argue with them, with no way of showing them the video unless they sent someone to our house to watch it, all to get back the 10p I paid for 5 minutes on the bounce house. At best, it would have been a Pyrrhic victory. Most likely, they'd just tell us to piss off. Story 5. Anabolic steroids. I was a high jumper on my college's track and field team, and we had to do urine tests every so often. Well, one of mine came back from the lab positive for anabolic steroids, which give women who take them strong, manly-like features. I was 5'8" and 125 pounds. Luckily, the lab broke the tests into 2 samples and eventually tested the second sample, which showed it was clean. Apparently, the lab had a contaminated batch of test tubes, and the company had to fly reps into my college to apologize to me and a baseball player. It was a scary couple of weeks. Story 6. I helped a friend of my mother move when I had just turned 18 for no pay, and this lady accused me of stealing one of her guns. I booked it straight to the police department to explain the situation. When she tried to report me, they told her she was crazy, that they had already spoken to me, and that criminals who steal guns don't go directly to the police. Story 7. I was accused of destroying a window at school by dropping a rock from a higher floor. I was interrogated by the principal, my parents were called, my friends had to fund the repairs, and I was bullied on the bus. It fucking sucked. I found out who it was 2 years later, but by then, nobody cared. Story 8. I got kicked out of a sit-down restaurant during my company Christmas party for allegedly doing drugs in the bathroom. When the manager told me to leave, saying they don't allow that behavior here, my boss and 20-plus other employees vouched for me, stating that I had not left the table for over 2 hours, the entire duration of the party. The manager called my boss an idiot and still made me leave. No one from my company has been back since. Story 9. This is tame compared to others in this thread, but it's one that has stuck with me for ages. When I was really little, around 6 years old, my aunt was babysitting me. My sweet dog was shedding fur, and my aunt accused me of cutting her fur. She had me across her knee, saying she wouldn't spank me if I admitted to it. I was sobbing uncontrollably because I loved my dog. We were the same age and she was like a second mom to me, and would never do that to her. My mom came home not long after, and I do remember her being livid. Despite my issues with my mom, she never once laid a hand on me. My mom couldn't believe that her sister didn't comprehend that animals shed fur in clumps. Story 10. When I was 16, I was riding with a friend back to another friend's house when the cops pulled him over. I had nothing on me. Unbeknownst to me, he threw a bag of coke underneath my chair. The cops found it and put us both in jail. They took him to county, he was 17, and they took me to juvie, I was 16. He got out before me, hired a lawyer, and pinned it on me through family connections. The charges were reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor because I was a good kid, and it showed. It ruined my life for a good 5 years. I just heard that the kid, all grown up, broke into his ex-girlfriend's house to steal drugs, and is now pretty much a burnout loser. I'm applying for law school next spring. Story 11. I was 14 and had just started learning how to use a digital camera. The only one I had at the time was my mom's. Sometime after my birthday, the SD card that belonged to my mom went missing. My dad immediately blamed me for it, and my mom was hoping I didn't take it. After over an hour of interrogating me, we still couldn't find it. Turns out, my mom had put it in the usual place where she keeps her valuables. I didn't even get a fucking apology. Story 12. We lived in a townhome condo complex, and my mom was fighting with the board over misused funds. One day, while she was at work, there was a knock at our door. One of the neighbors had an emergency and asked if I could come and watch her kids while she went to the hospital. Sure, I was 16 and had been babysitting for 4 years. I spent a few hours looking after 2 cute kids, ages 3 and 5. I got home before my mom. We started dinner, and there was another knock at the door. It was a pair of police officers. The mother had gone to the police station and accused me of abusing her 3-year-old. She said that I had hit her and locked her in the dryer for several hours. My mom asked the cop if he was insane. She pointed out that I was the kid who picked caterpillars off the sidewalk and put them on the grass so people wouldn't step on them. She asked the cops to point out the complainant, and when they did, my mom asked if I was crazy because that's the same woman who had stolen funds from the condo board. I told her I didn't know that and explained that the woman had said she needed to go to the hospital because her dad had had a heart attack. The cops said they would be back. They returned an hour later and told us that I wouldn't need to come with them after all. It turned out that her dad was alive and well. I wasn't so well, though, after having a full-blown panic attack for an hour. Story 13. I know this is ridiculous, but in second grade, another child accused me of calling my teacher a bitch. No one believed me when I claimed innocence, and I got a spanking and was forced to apologize. I felt so powerless because since all the adults believed I was guilty, I effectively was. I think I'm still a little mad about it. Story 14. One time my mom passed out in our bathroom and hit her head, requiring stitches. I guess because my little sister was really worried and upset with the whole situation, my dad thought it wouldn't hurt to bring her along when he drove my mom to the hospital. What he didn't consider was that my sister had skinned her knee when she tripped on her way to the bus stop a few days before, and the Band-Aid was still on. The looks my dad got from that combination of circumstances. My God. Story 15. There was a creative writing class at my high school for seniors. You had to write a creative piece to apply to the class. I wrote a piece and got into the class, which was in my second semester, spring. At the end of the fall semester, my mom took me out of the class. Why? She accused me of plagiarizing my paper because she thought I didn't write it. She said it wasn't like the papers I had written before. I did write it, though. She didn't even have proof.